Next up, we have a really innovative format, as you see, from all the activity that's happening around me. We're going to do a live podcast as a talk. And for everyone who's standing up there, and also, like, if you see all of these seats open here towards the front, just come on down, like, move closer, because you're going to be participating in this particular podcast. So the format here is that about 10 minutes into it, in this podcast that's co-hosted by Faith Forster and Randy Silver, about 10 minutes into it, they're going to start taking questions from the audience. And feel free to enter into Slido both questions, comments, and they'll start to integrate that into their podcast. And so let me take a moment to introduce them and give you a little bit about their background. But again, like, come a little closer, because we're going to make lots of noise and participate in this podcast, right? So while you're coming closer, here, I'm going to introduce, let me start with Faith. Faith is the Chief Product Officer of Discoveree, and she's built products in B2B, SaaS, in FinTech, and she's been part of several successful acquisitions. And Randy Silver is the CPO of Out of Owls, and he has experience in building high-performance teams, having done that at Amazon, Sainsbury, and HSBC. And he's the author of What Do We Do Now? Together, they're co-hosts of the podcast, Building Out Loud, AI Native Startup Journey. And I'm excited for this live recording. Let's make lots of noise for Faith and Randy.
Thank you. This is weird.
We're normally sitting in my garden office while we do this.
Well, I'm not sitting
no,
in
you're
your
not. You're in your own office, yes.
Okay, so let's start the way we always start. So, welcome back to another episode of Building Out Loud with me, Randy Silver, and
Faith Forster.
where every week we check in with Faith to see how everything's going as she builds out Discoveree. And this one's a little bit different. We're not doing it in our offices. We're doing this live in Lisbon at Productized.
Yeah.
So normally we would start with checking in and I would ask you what's been going on in the last week, but for the audience here who may not have listened to every episode, let's do a little bit of background. So what is Discoveree? How did you get started on this journey? Let's do the short potted history.
Yeah, sure. So I was a chief product officer at a legal tech company, and this was sort of late last year. I was trying to use agents to gather all the information we needed to help inform what we should focus on in 2026. And I found it really hard. There was just, as product leaders, there is so many different sources of information we need to refer to. And so I ended up having this like beast of a Word doc with different tabs where I sort of dumped all this information that the agents had given me. But I still had to find time between meetings to go through it and work out, well, what's important, what does this mean, what do we do about it? And I was like, ugh. And I had already reset our product strategy around building agentic workflows, and I had had a lot of pushback from the engineers on it, actually. And so when I left that organization, I really wanted to get hands-on with the AI coding platforms, because I think as leaders, it's really hard to understand properly the possibilities and the pitfalls of AI coding if you haven't actually done it yourself. And so I was kind of looking for an excuse to do that, and that problem really stuck with me. And I thought there's actually, like I've talked a lot about the fact that we in an AI world, we need to go back to first principles, to the problem we're trying to solve for our customers, and rethink how we solve that problem. And I kind of thought this was a great opportunity to kind of go back to first principles. Like, I've rolled out so many different product management tools in different organizations I've led. None of them worked particularly well. They did certain bits well, but I just thought there was an opportunity here to go back and rethink that whole problem using AI.
So let's go into the problem that you were trying to solve. What was the thing that you wanted to dig into with this?
So when I started, I was basically looking to build a series of agents that would gather that information and give you the so what for your product. As I worked through that problem, and I remember saying this to you on one of the episodes, it went so much further than I thought possible at the start. Once you actually start to understand the technology and how to use it, so I had these agents that were gathering all that information, which is tasks, that you give each agent a particular type of information to go away and get and come back. But actually where it got much more interesting was then when I started building agents on top of that did the analysis, and then on top of that did the recommendations. So we're able to, and I remember showing you one of the screens, like competitor intelligence. We gather really detailed profiles about all of your competitors. But then when you have the so what around, what does their pricing model say about their strategy? What does their integration say about their partnerships? We do a sort of a strategic assessment of that competitor and suggest a threat level. And we use that to prioritize feedback we gather on your competitors from the web. But then you can add on top of that again and use that to understand your competitive landscape and what's moving and what that means from you strategically and the risks it creates, and make recommendations on that in terms of what you then should be thinking about with your product. And I think that's where it starts getting a lot more interesting, when you add that level of insight with your customer insights and feedback, with your growth strategy, with your business goals. We can look at your roadmap and pull it in from whatever planning tools you're using, and suggest roadmap items, point out where you're not doing the most valuable things and where you should focus your attention instead. There's just so much more value we can add.
So how does this live up to the promise and the hype? We just saw a slide that talked about Lovable getting to 100 million ARR in 20 minutes or something like that. You've been doing this for 6 months.
Yeah.
It's all been smooth sailing, right? Everything went perfectly, and you're on the road to millions and millions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what's actually happened?
Yeah, it's been a rocky journey, which was why we wanted to do this podcast, because there was just so much from the very start. There was so much I was learning, and I knew everyone else needed to learn this. And so I reached out to you and let's do this out loud. Gosh, there's been some ups and downs. It took me weeks to get the agents to actually do what I was trying to get them to do. Opus 4.6 was an absolute game changer. So I built it in Replit. Replit is hosted in the US. Obviously, I've worked with 96 product leaders to get to this point through alpha and beta, and most of those, not all, but most of them are in the UK or EU. And so we needed it hosted in the EU, and that's created a whole bunch of challenges, just trying to get 2 instances set up, a common code base, making sure that payments worked across both instances properly, that the invitations and the email notifications and things knew where to send people back. There's just been, there's been a lot of complexity. I did have an incident a couple of weeks ago where, is that what you're fishing for? Yeah.
One of those things, yeah.
Yeah. Just before the long weekend, I made some changes to one of the competitor intelligence agents, and it started throwing an error, but I had run out the door by this point for my son's sports day. And so it kept retrying, and it retried to do its job every 3 seconds, every competitor profile, across every product, across every organization. So over 100,000 failed LLM calls later, it had drained my bank account. If it hadn't been a long weekend, I would have realized much quicker. But unfortunately, I was very, very busy, and that hurt.
Yeah. But you did learn some lessons from that one, and yeah.
I certainly did, yeah.
Let's step away from that incident. It's not like it's all been a straight line. There has been discovery along the way. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the changes in positioning and how you learned what the product actually was over time. How has it changed?
Yeah. Gosh, a lot. I feel like that's an evolution in itself. As I said, it started out by just sort of doing the gathering of the information. We have so much information we use as inputs, and a lot of it not very well, to help us think through what we should focus on in pricing. Win-loss reasons in the CRM, customer feedback is almost scattered over lots of places. We're very, very poor generally at understanding our competitors. very poor also at connecting the dots back to the financials and actually understand what drives profitability and margin within our product. And so I thought there's a lot of value in just gathering that information. But actually, when I spoke to a bunch of product leaders, they were like, yeah, kind of interesting. Might save a bit of time, but actually it's not really valuable enough. And so that's where I started looking at sort of what else can we do. And I think one of the things that I got really excited about, so I was building with AI, but I was still thinking about the product like a traditional SaaS platform with boxes everywhere. And when I redesigned it to look more like Markdown files, and that opened up a whole new set of possibilities. And one of the ones I got really excited about was the growth strategy, because it's just too complex to put into boxes. But actually, when you have a chat assistant who can gather understanding first and then create the interface accordingly, it completely changes the game on that. And so we have a general strategy assistant who will ask you a bunch of sort of common or basic questions about your growth strategy and how you're thinking about driving the business. We then have 20 specialist strategy assistants who will then do a deep dive on things like pricing or new market entry or your customer optimization funnel or even raising funding. And so you can do a deep dive with any of those specialist agents on specific areas that you're looking at for your business. And then we also have a thought partner who you can just have a really open conversation about anything you want with all the context that we have in the platform. But one of the great things about this, I think is quite cool, is you chat to them about all the reasons why your strategy might fail. And then it uses that to update your strategy and work out, well, what does this mean? What do we do differently? And I thought that is just so cool to have that partnership, I think, but have it in a way that's you can share it with the whole team. It becomes the organizational context that everyone else uses to prioritize, to work out what they should be focusing on. So it's not you sitting with Claude over in the corner and then coming out and saying this is it without any understanding from the team. It actually becomes a living, breathing part of the way that your organization works, which I think is super powerful.
Okay, I want to ask you about the pronouns you were using in that last question, because you kept referring to we and the team and the organization, but Discoveree is you plus artificial intelligence-enabled things. You've done a startup and scale-up before, but you had a team around you, actual people.
Yes.
An actual we. And this time it's mostly you in the garden office.
Yes.
So have you started thinking of the agents as personalities, as people in some ways? Or how are you, let's go back into that we a little bit. How are you actually feeling about this?
Yeah, it is interesting. I do talk about they and we and my team of agents. I haven't entirely done this on my own. I have had an engineer helping me, so he's helped set up the EU instance and hardened the data security and the really, really critical things. I have an amazing VP of product marketing that I worked with previously who's been helping me. You've kept me accountable every week. I honestly don't think I would have gotten this far without you. But yes, the agents, it's interesting because I had this question the other day. They're like, do they work? Do they perform? And it's like, well, it's like any other team. Like sometimes they do some really brilliant work. Sometimes they do some really terrible work. Most of the time it's in between. And it's like, that's the same as any team.
Do you have one-to-ones with them?
No. And I haven't given them names.
So the one question I ask you every single week on this is, are you charging yet? So are you charging yet?
Well, it's set up. It's working.
Okay.
Yeah, the payments is now in place. I did a presentation on this at Mind the Product earlier this week, and we've got this session today, and so it's effectively become my launch week by default, despite trying to avoid a launch as such. But yeah, I was working to 2 a.m. on Saturday night trying to get it all ready. Yeah.
Okay, so that's wonderful. Let's take a little bit of a retrospective look at this as well. So you've built something that has a lot of components, a lot of functionality, a lot of features to it. If you were you've done product for a long time. I've seen some really great frameworks and advice that you've given to other people.
Yeah.
Would you have advised anyone else to start this way?
To build out such a fully featured platform.
As your MVP, essentially, yeah.
I was chatting to Matt LeMay about this last night. I can't see if he's in the audience. I honestly think AI has completely changed the concept of MVP, because MVP was designed for an era where it was expensive to build. And so you had to build the least amount and get it out and validate it first. In this scenario, like, the tools I'm, I guess, competing against are established tools. They're established practices, and the people who are using this are tech savvy, and they have certain level of expectations. And so, yeah, I've used a lot of AI type tools, and the quality often isn't there, and it's really frustrating and actually really unimpressive. And so I'm used to working and delivering products at a certain level of quality, and I didn't want to not do that. So in theory, I could have rushed this out a couple of months ago. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to make sure it was a quality product, it worked, it did what it was supposed to do, and actually delivered value. And so it has been a super intensive exercise. Like, the building is absolutely not the hard part. It's the hard part was the moving target, because I would talk to these product leaders, and month to month, their thinking, their understanding of their organization and their process and what they want to do and how they want to use AI would shift. And so that's, it's one of the reasons why we've done the Makers Manifesto, which we'll talk about. But actually, the hard part was understanding how to build this in a way that supported where these teams are heading, where they want to go, and to get enough understanding of that across organizations to know what was possible, and therefore, help people on that journey, I guess.
Okay, so that was a perfect segue, thank you. So first off, there is the Slido QR code up on the screens. If you do have questions that you'd like to ask us, please do get them in. We'll start checking that in just a minute or two. But the other question I ask every week is, so what's happened in the last week? Has it been a busy one? What's going on?
Oh my God, it's been insane. Yeah, it's in such a great way. So as I said, I was madly trying to get the product to so it all worked. There was one of the challenges with the fact that it is so fully featured is there's a lot to test, and so there was a mad dash over the last week to make sure it all fully worked, and was at a level that I was comfortable with releasing into the wild, so to speak. We've also had Mind the Product. I spoke at a Claude event straight after. We're now in Lisbon. I love Lisbon. I'm so glad to be here. It's been a crazy week. On top of also personal things. My husband had surgery, and I was in a rowing race, and I have 3 kids and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's been super fun. There's nothing like a hard deadline to really focus the mind.
Okay, but let's focus on the thing that you talked about at Mind the Product.
Yes.
So over the last few months, we've been working together with a bunch of other fantastic people. Some of them are here. Rich Mironov, Martin Erickson, Matt LeMay, Radhika, Andre, Joao, on doing an updated version of the Agile Manifesto called the Makers Manifesto.
Yes.
How did this come about?
Yeah, so as I said, I spoke to 96 product leaders in the process of building Discoveree, and the thing that really struck me about those conversations was how wildly different people's understanding was of AI and the implications it would have. And you put me in touch with some of the conference organizers. Andre was one of them. And I'd put my little pitch together on these are all the things that will be different in the new world for product managers. And I suppose it was on Adrienne in particular in Australia who runs Leading the Product. I said to her, I was like, this can't just be one person's opinion or one organization's experience. This is a market shift. And really what we need is people to come together and say, these are all the things you now need to think about in this AI world. And I said to her, it's almost like we need the next Agile Manifesto. And she was like, oh, I love it. And so I reached out to a few of the names you mentioned, some of the guys I know in London, and I was like, I've got this crazy idea. What do you think? And they're like, absolutely, we need to do this. I'm in. Let's do it. And so Andre very kindly and Adrienne helped me contact a bunch of people around the world, because it it was very clear to me from the start, if we were going to do this, it had to be properly representative. It had to be cross-disciplinary. It had to be global. It had to have all of the different perspectives involved in building great products. And so we pulled together 44 experts and operators globally. Amazing group of people. I feel really privileged to be part of that group, to create what was a crazy ambitious task. But everyone, if you saw LinkedIn yesterday, the comment I made on there was, the most common response I got was, I'm honoured to be asked to be part of this.
And the second most common response was, have you got Rich Mironov in yet?
Yes, yeah. Because the way it kind of worked, I said, look, we started with such a great group of people. Anyway, I said, look, anyone you respect and think should be involved in this is very welcome. And the most nominations I had was for Rich. Yeah.
So the manifesto, I'll put it up on the screen here, or at least the link to it. So it's similar to the Agile Manifesto. It's got a preamble, it's got 4 basic values, and then 16 principles, 4 principles per value alongside it. You can get it all here. There's a plain text, human readable version. There's also an MD file, so you can download it and put it into your Claude MD. I've done it, a few other people have done it, and you had an interesting experience trying to apply it as well.
I did. So we have skills files within Discoveree. You can put, whatever way your organisation is choosing to work, you can add it to Discoveree, and it uses that context as well. So I uploaded the Makers Manifesto Skills MD file to be embedded in each organisation within Discoveree by default. And again, it was one of those ones that was like, it was definitely at the bottom end of the spectrum in terms of team performance. It took quite a number of attempts to get it to work. But then when it did, it added it as a skills file. It had made up a completely new manifesto.
Kill all humans.
Yeah.
No.
I was like, no, I gave it to you. You need to follow word by word. Anyway, it's there now.
And one of the key principles in there is, humans assign the work. You need to, you can't delegate autonomy and authority. So
yes.
Let's move to some of the questions from the audience. So, Faith, what was the structure of your process of iterating on the agents? It can be very time-consuming to make such a workflow create an output you can truly find complete.
Oof, gosh, that's a big question. The process of iterating on the agents, actually, I mentioned Opus 4.6 was a game changer. There was, because I'd had a lot of challenges with this over a number of weeks. So and Ed Biden from Hustle Badger, they do amazing product management training, was advising me. He joined one of the episodes to talk about evals, and so I use Lengfuse, an evals tool now. It was a lot of pain, a lot of trying to capture that, put it in. Even the more recent issue I had with it, when the LLMs drained my bank account, went back through and made some changes and obviously put some guardrails, circuit breakers in. But even then I found, because I did at one point completely change the architecture of the agents. So I had originally set them up as quite separate things. One of the things I wanted to do was make it so that customers could put their own LLM keys in, because if they've already got an enterprise license for, we use Claude, OpenAI, Perplexity, and I'm missing one. Anyway, there's 4. If they've already got their own enterprise license for any of those that they've gotten approved through IT Security, it's far easier for them to put their keys in, and it's then secure within their own environment, the data. And so I needed to change the whole architecture so it was all routed through one router so that they could put their own LLM keys in. But also that's what I use to do the tracing for the evals platform, and also to track the usage for billing. And it turned out from this incident a couple of weeks ago, even though I had distinctly a number of times said, are all the agents through this platform? Because it's also reading off some skills files around how they're supposed to operate. And despite being told multiple times that they weren't. And so I've had to go back through and sort of clean that up and make sure that all of the agents are actually operating through that sort of router now. So it's been a challenging exercise. There are now better tools to manage agents available more recently. But it is, like so many people talk about, just whip up this agent to do this thing, and it really is not that simple. To get it to the point where it's actually performing the tasks you want at the quality that you want, it takes a lot of investment.
Creating an agent is easy, training it is not.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. As a solopreneur, how do you prioritize what to work on? How do you decide between building your product and doing activities to market it and get new users?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And this is a habit I've had for years now, actually. I'll have 2 or 3, at the start of the week, I'll have 2 or 3 problems identified that I need to solve by the end of the week. And so that's really where I focus my attention and decide. A day is a long time when you're building with AI. You can achieve a lot in a day or 2. And obviously we do the podcast, so that's a weekly activity. It really depends on sort of what's coming up. But what I've generally used to help, because when you're on your own, I guess it's very easy to let time slip. And so I've used the very many people I've talked to and been part of through alpha and beta. I've often used their deadlines to create discipline for myself along the process. It has, since Easter, it has definitely been more challenging as I've had a lot of distractions. But yeah, I think where we've got to is a pretty good result. In that I get to be here on stage, so I've done something right.
Fantastic. Okay, unfortunately, that is all the time that we've got for today. I'd like to do one last thing if we can, because we don't get to do this with people like you very often. Well, first off, we'll be around for the rest of the day if you want to talk to Faith about, or me, and ask us any other questions about the Manifesto. You have all these other people you can talk to as well. But if you'll indulge us, can we do a quick selfie with the crowd behind us?
Oh, yeah, that'd be
all
amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you want to make noise for this and be excited, hey, thank you very much. Thank you so much.